You automatically start a timer and sprint forward. In Normandy, a sapper does the opposite. He stops on open sand under fire. Why is delay the only chance to break through alive? By the end, you will see 3 systematic reasons this was almost unbearable. A layered field of threats that stack at once, a deficit of time and kit that always runs out too early, and a landscape that grinds plans into noise. You will also see what we underrate in modern safety and infrastructure, and why predictability is a quiet shield you rarely notice. Where are we? The beaches of Normandy and the bocage behind them, fields cut by earthen banks and living hedgerows, damp air, sticky clay. Who speaks? An allied sapper in a clearing team, first to touch wire, mines, and obstacles ahead of infantry and tanks. What rules? Bangalore torpedoes, mine detectors, probing rods, demolition charges, Bailey bridges, hedgerow cutters, against German jumping mines and steel hedgehogs. When? The assault began on 6 June 1944. Safe windows are short. If the water is salty and the sand is open, where can a sapper even hide? Would pull a bottle from the tap without thinking. Here a canteen is a promise you ration by mouthfuls, because a run for a stream is a moving target for a watcher with optics. The ration biscuit goes down standing, not reclining, because lying cuts your view and steals minutes. Dehydration dulls attention. Dull attention misses the lifted blade of grass that means wire, the too neat patch that means a mine. Salt wind scours lips and memory. Drink later is self-deception in a place where later is a luxury. You learn to hide thirst behind procedure, heel, toe, pause, probe, feel, and only then step. A swallow when the hand finishes a sweep, never before. You keep hunger on a leash by routine, not by will. Today's habit of snacking on the go would betray you. Crinkling a wrapper is nothing now, but then the sound of any hurry could bloom into attention you did not earn. And that means what comes next. Walls and cold. Shelter becomes a ditch you did not dig, because tents are flags on an empty stage. The hedgerow is a wall that breathes, its roots holding damp like a sponge. Night settles into cloth and bone. Even in summer, wet wind slides under layers and gnaws at your hands. Gloves stop being an accessory and become a way to keep the probe honest. Numb fingers lie, and a lying hand is a bad partner for steel. You count breaths to warm your palms, one set for each pocket of heat, one set more for that slow return of feeling that lets metal talk to skin. Socks that never dry threaten to disconnect you from the ground. Without sensation, every step becomes a question you cannot answer. The line shifts in whispers, so any burrow you find is temporary. You do not sink roots, you drift with the front and pretend that drift is rest. Who goes first when the wire waits and the unknown lives behind it? The sapper walks before the shooters and before the tanks, because corridors must exist before momentum can. First the eye and the probe, then the charge, because the order saves the men behind you. A Bangalore slides under the wire like a stiff serpent, a press, a push, a shove with shoulders and knees. The blast is both key and bell. It opens a gap and invites attention at the same time. You listen to the fuse and keep the count inside the skull where panic cannot reach it. Fingers trace the primer, thumb checks the safety, and breath becomes a metronome. The detector hums in a language you teach yourself nightly, a vocabulary of faint peaks over sand and gravel. Each step is part of a contract with the unknown. By dawn, a breach. After, medicine and consequences. Can you treat anyone when stretchers are targets too? Field dressings do their work in half places, behind a bank, under a cart, in the narrow wedge of quiet between two bursts. Evacuation is a promise written in pencil. Sometimes it is a crawl, sometimes a weight measured in rain. Infection loves damp hedgerows. A scratch that would be nothing on a dry road turns mean in mud that holds every bacterial secret. Fatigue bargains with your focus. The mind tries to round off corners, but minds and wire hide in corners. Painkillers are rationed alongside bandages. If everyone lay down to wait for the full measure, lanes would close and bodies would stack. You choose between a short rest that could save your hands and the shoulder your partner needs to finish a lane. You hold that choice like a hot tool. Rinse the wound or move. Everything leads to safety. Who answers if the corridor is open and the infantry hesitates? Orders sit heavy because the pace of the whole advance balances on the sapper's work. Initiative can save a minute and break a regulation in the same breath. The ledger does not forgive easily. Fire from flanks is a drumbeat. Movement is doctrine. Stillness is invitation. For trophies, you keep a separate rulebook. Foreign minds do not respect curiosity, and a second blast after victory is still a failure. You swallow the instinct to bolt for cover without a word. Discipline rides next to fear and reigns it, not because fear is shameful, but because the line connects your choice to lives you can count by helmet. You mark the corridor not just with white tape, but with your own promise. If you cut corners, others will pay for your shortcut. It seems quieter. In fact, this is the entry into climate. What is worse, the enemy or the clay that tries to own your boot? Rain turns every depression into a trap. Mud hides tripwires and eats the ends of stakes. Hedgerows cast their own weather, shade that keeps ground slick, seams that cradle ambush. A breach in a hedge is not an exit, but a door into an unfamiliar room. Each new opening means a new map you do not have. Fog steals distance and then steals shape. You lean on touch more than sight, because sensing a taut wire with a rod beats guessing at a silhouette. Salt spray kisses metal and shortens the life of your tools. If you do not wipe and oil, the hinge that must open will not. You clean the probe with a sleeve that is already wet. The palm takes the mud again, because there is no other cloth. Bet you would take off your jacket? Here, that is social constraint. How do you talk to locals when every bush holds a doubt? Words fail, and gestures can threaten as easily as reassure. A farmer's field is his world, and your lane cuts through it with no time for explanation. The sapper's work lives at ground level, near the dirt and the edges. Recognition arrives last, if it arrives at all. You work beside allies who obey different manuals, carry other habits, and speak urgency in other accents. You weigh a nod to a villager asking for help against the distance you must keep to avoid dragging danger into his kitchen. You adopt a face that neither promises nor dismisses. Some doors crack open for water, some hands point to footpaths your maps forgot. Trust is a bridge you build without tools, and it has to hold weight on the first crossing. You are already on the threshold, but that is still before the finale. Return to the initial paradox. Running forward feels natural. In this place, stopping under fire is the method. Why? You stop to listen for the ground's reply, to read the beach like a ledger of pressure, tracks, and traps. You stop to let fear burn just enough to sharpen your senses instead of blunting them. You stop so that when you move, the men behind you can move into a world that has one fewer surprise. The layered threat field is the first truth. Open sand is a stage, hidden mines, overlapping arcs of fire, and improvised obstacles perform together without announcing their cues. You cannot address them one by one. You must behave as if all act at once. That is why delay is not indecision, but a technique. Each second buys a fraction of certainty, and fractions add up to a passable lane. The second truth is the deficit of time and means. Safe windows are short, smoke clears, tides shift, tools corrode, charges and fuses dwindle faster than the resupply reaches you. You borrow tricks from yesterday and pay interest with risk today. You husband your kit because every ruined spanner, every spent detonator, is a hole you must bridge with improvisation. You are racing more than the enemy. You are racing entropy in your own pocket. The third truth is the landscape's entropy. The bocage is not scenery. It is a machine that grinds plans. It reroutes sight lines, cancels maps, and drips water into everything from boots to morale. It bends discipline by making you choose between speed and caution 10 times an hour. It whispers that nothing will quite go as written, and then proves it. You plan anyway, and accept that plans here are scaffolds, not walls. So could you last a day? If you keep your modern habits, likely not. You might drink when thirsty, rush when time feels short, and trust that systems will cushion your errors. Here the cushion is thin. Here the craft is patience under pressure and movement without hurry. Here the hero is a private with a probe who believes that caution is not cowardice, but service. What do we underrate now? Predictable infrastructure, clean water that arrives without risk and without thought, evacuation that works on a timetable, tools that match across units and work despite weather, standards that make a hinge fit a door without a file. These quiet systems erase dozens of dangers before you leave the house. On a beach with salt in the air and wire in the sand, you can feel the absence of that predictability like a hand at your back. You automatically start a timer and sprint. A sapper on Normandy's shore learned to stop, to listen, to buy life with seconds. Delay was not a pause, it was the only bridge across an invisible field of threats, across the clock that always ran faster than resupply, across ground that refused to cooperate. That is why the first step was hesitation, and why that hesitation, properly trained, became the way through. You think the lesson ends at the beach. It does not. The first lanes open like narrow doors, and you file men through them. Then the hedgerows take over, and the craft changes from beach arithmetic to green geometry. Every bank, every root system is a new rulebook. You keep the probe low and the head lower. The field looks empty until a single thread says otherwise. You learn to accept that most of your work is slow removal of surprises that no one will ever see. The mine detector tells one story, the soil tells another. The coil hums, but wet ground sings back. You validate with the rod because the ear can be fooled by moisture and scrap. You learn the weight of a true contact in your wrist. Too light and it is junk. Too heavy and it is danger. You do not celebrate when you find something. Discovery means delay, and delay means attention. The reward is only that the lane exists a little longer. Wire is honest in one way. It wants to snag you. It sits in grass like a patient trap and waits for fatigue. You fight it with cutters, charges, and the habit of tracing paths with eyes before boots. You keep tension low on your own nerves by keeping tension high in your procedures. The Bangalore is crude but consistent. It punishes hurry. If you rush, you misplace it. If you misplace it, the blast clears nothing and announces everything. In the bocage, steel obstacles arrive as fragments of other plans. A gate, a plow, a bit of farm iron becomes part of a barrier. You learn the texture of improvisation. You respect it. The enemy builds fast and ugly, but ugly works when your map thinks the field is open. You adjust by borrowing their economy. A charge that would be large on paper becomes small and precise in a ditch. You conserve, not to hoard, but to keep options alive. Bridges become your moving arguments with rivers and ditches. A Bailey Bay is not poetry. It is memory set in panels and pins. It fits because men agreed beforehand on standards. You feel gratitude for bolts that match and plates that slot without filing. Every error before the war is a delay now. Every good standard is time you do not spend inventing. You hear the knock of hammers as a kind of safety you can count. Hedgerow cutters arrive like a rumor and then become part of the routine. Teeth welded from enemy steel bite into roots. You clear the approaches, mark the verges, and warn the driver with gestures that have to cut through engine noise. The tank noses in, lifts, and splits the hedge into a ragged door. You feel the vibration underfoot. The lane is born messy, but it is a lane. You seed it with markers and push men through before the ground changes its mind. Smoke is both friend and hazard. It hides intent and erases maps. You use it when a field is too honest about your direction. You avoid it when the lane needs clear signals for men who follow. You think about wind more than you ever did at home. There, wind is weather. Here, wind is policy. A wrong gust turns cover into confusion. You do not control it, so you plan for what it might do to your warnings and your next step. Noise teaches you timing. Too quiet, and a single clink could draw a look. Too loud, and the sound you need to hear is buried. You learn to work in the margins between blasts. You wait for the enemy gun to fire elsewhere, and then push a charge into a slot, or pull a pin you cannot afford to drop. You count not just seconds, but patterns. 3 beats there, a shift, then your chance. It feels like theft, and you take it without shame. Night changes posture, not purpose. You crouch lower, you speak less, and light becomes a currency. A covered torch under a coat is worth more than extra rations. You guard batteries like people. You feel the road by boot edge and rod tip. You smell damp iron and cut earth. The senses become a checklist you repeat until your own voice in your head feels like a team leader. Sight, touch, pressure, slack, step. Rain writes its own orders. It makes pits where feet should not go and fills them so that they lie. It swells wood and softens rope. It asks you whether the next hour is work or preservation, dry the kit or push the lane. You gamble because there is no perfect option. You put oil on metal and hope it sticks. You shake water from sleeves and accept that the mud you wipe now will be replaced by new mud in a minute. Fatigue stays. Food helps, but not much, because the work is attention, and attention burns unseen. You trade jokes like smokes, not to be clever, but to mark that time still moves. You know that blank faces mean danger. A man who stops asking small questions stops seeing small clues. You prod your partner with a nudge or a useless comment just to keep the rhythm alive. You would not do this at home. Here it is, part of safety. The locals filter into your world in short scenes. A woman points to an orchard and shakes her head. You change the line, not because she outranks you, but because she owns this piece of ground with her knowledge. A boy holds up a shoe and gestures at a footpath. You mark a question on your map where the paper says nothing. You say thank you with your eyes because language arrives late and patrols move early. Allies argue in whispers pitched as orders. One unit says push, another says hold, and wash the lane again. Both are right inside their own frames. You become a translator between intent and ground. You say, 5 more minutes buys us an hour, and hope that someone above you believes it. Sometimes the clock agrees. Sometimes the clock is cruel. You do not get to negotiate with tide or light. Sickness is a quieter enemy than shells. A cough steals sleep, and missing sleep steals judgment. Wet socks invite skin that no longer reports true. You make rules about feet the way a chef makes rules about knives. Dry them when you can. Change them if possible. Do not lie about how they feel. If you cannot feel the rod, you cannot trust the ground. The body is equipment and deserves the same discipline. Kit breaks. A handle cracks because cold works into wood. A hinge chews itself because grit found a way in. You run a tiny repair shop out of your pockets. String here, tape there, a pin borrowed from a lamp bracket to replace a lost split pin. The field rewards this habit. You do not love improvisation, but you respect its speed. You catalog fixes in your head so you can repeat them in the next lane without thinking. Maps are polite fictions until they learn the hedgerow. You redraw, not to be artistic, but to keep the memory of this bank, this drain, this gate. You pass that sketch to the next team because they will start their day where you end yours. The paper becomes a quiet relay. A clean arrow and a short note can save more time than a loud promise. You realize that leaving clarity behind is a form of protection. You still think of home sometimes, but not to escape. You compare systems. At home, a door handle fits its spindle because someone cared about a standard. Here, a bridge fits because many people cared before you got wet. That thinking becomes comfort. It says you are not alone with your tools. You are part of a chain that started in factories and offices that you will never see, and that chain reaches into a muddy field. Fear is present, but it is not theatrical. It is a pressure that gets you to check a clamp twice and then check again. It gets you to anchor tape a little farther from the blast than you did yesterday. It makes you think about where shrapnel might wander if a charge behaves oddly. This is not panic. It is the conscience of survival. You learn not to be ashamed of it. You learn to wield it. When the day slips to its end, you would like a clean line between work and rest. There is none. Lanes do not care about your schedule. The ground keeps its secrets until you insist. You clear a little more because you know the morning will be worse if you do not. Then you stop because the hand begins to miss details. You set a boundary in your head. Stop before pride becomes a hazard. Morning does not forgive poor prep. Batteries forgotten on the ground become lumps of silence. A wet charge that could have been kept dry becomes a delay. You walk the previous work before you start new work. That habit feels slow and saves lives. You correct tape that sagged in the night and replace stakes that loosened. You remeasure because rain always edits. You meet enemy work you admire without saying it out loud. A well-placed mine at a gate. A wire pulled through hedge roots so that it is almost impossible to trace. A fake lane that looks inviting. You do not copy cruelty. You copy discipline. You learn what they think you will do and then do it more slowly than they expect, with checks they did not plan for you to make. You turn their assumptions into your timetable. Resupply arrives as a kind of rain you welcome. Fresh charges, dry fuses, clean pins. You touch each thing and inventory it out loud. You place it where your hands can find it in the dark. You thank the clerk without ceremony because gratitude is also part of tempo. A small delay at the dump becomes a large delay in front. The chain is only as fast as its slowest conversation. You build a private language with your team. 2 taps on the shoulder means halt. A squeezed forearm means look left. A flat palm means drop lower. You agree on this not because silence is dramatic, but because silence travels where speech cannot. You practice until touch talks faster than voice. You do not publish this language. You hold it tight so that it remains yours when others change around you. The first month teaches you more about humility than any manual. You enter fields you do not own and ask them to share a narrow path. You argue with physics and persuade it only sometimes. You learn the line between brave and reckless and protect it. You accept that credit will land elsewhere and that this is fair if the men behind you arrive alive. You measure success in absence. Nothing exploded here today. You look back at the paradox from the opening and see it differently now. Stopping on open sand under fire was not defiance. It was a method born from layered threats, short windows, and stubborn terrain. In the bocage, it becomes a life rule. Pause, listen, confirm, move. You do this until it feels automatic. You let modern habits go, rushing, assuming, trusting that systems will forgive error. Here they will not. And when the campaign rolls on, you carry the invisible trophies. A bridge that stood because holes lined up. A lane that stayed open long enough for a company to pass. A farm gate that did not become a memorial. You keep the probe and the rod as your signatures. The landscape will forget your names, but it will remember the work in the form of men who reach the next field. What stays with you after? The respect for invisible order. The sense that standards are the quiet side of courage. The habit of patience under pressure. You return to daily life and feel gratitude for tap water you can drink without a map, for roads that do not lie, for tools that fit across brands. You do not romanticize the past. You bring forward a practice, Make danger predictable before you move. The question that began this story asked why delay was the only chance. The answer is that delay was not hesitation, but design. A designed pause turns chaos into a sequence you can solve. It gives space for tools and minds to work together, even when rain, salt, and hedgerows conspire. It holds a lane open long enough for people to cross. And that is the simple, hard truth a sapper learned on a beach and carried through a month of fields. You learn to wait without freezing. The pause is active, not passive. Eyes sweep, fingertips map grains and roots, ears pick out metal from wind. Your body looks still, but the mind is sorting a queue of little decisions. Move the tape or replace it. Shift the charge a hand's width or leave it. The craft lives in these tiny forks. You stop trusting luck and start trusting sequences. If the step is uncertain, you make it conditional. Probe, confirm, place, check, then call the lane. You resist the urge to compress steps because compression steals certainty. The enemy loves your shortcuts. The ground profits from them too. You make patience a tool, not a virtue. Routes do not repeat neatly. A field that was easy yesterday wakes mean today. A bank slumped in the night and buried your marker. A cart rolled through and laid fresh tracks across your tape. You do not complain to the field. It cannot hear you. You revise and say it out loud so your partner hears the plan and can catch your blind spots. You treat silence as an instrument. Thin sounds matter. A bead sliding on wire, a tiny hiss from damp powder, a rustle that does not match wind. You catalog these and share them with new hands. Teaching is insurance. You pass on the weight of a true contact in the wrist, the feel of honest ground under the boot edge. The lesson is not dramatic, it is exact. Flail tanks feel like a miracle the first time, then settle into the toolbox. The drum spins, chains bite, dirt leaps, and the path turns from maybe to usable. But the machine is not a spell. It needs room to dance and space to turn. You clear edges, mark soft spots, and keep men back until the dust falls. Even miracles still require margins. Sometimes you reach a wall you cannot rush, a culvert with a trick, a gateway that hums in the detector and purrs in the rod. You call for a shaped charge, not a hammer. You protect stone because collapse creates fresh traps. You think about lines of force the way a carpenter thinks about grain. You are not breaking, you are persuading. Messages travel oddly in hedgerows. A shout dies in leaves. A wave goes unseen behind a bank. You invent relays. One man at the turn, one at the bend, one at the breach. Hands speak, heads nod. A cap lifted once means send one squad, twice means hold. You do not admire the elegance, you accept the necessity. When you can, you pre-build answers. Spare tape reels, sealed in tins, stakes cut to length and bundled by habit, fuses protected in waxed cloth, a bridge panel staged where the road narrows. The future thanks the past in small ways. The minutes you bank now pay back in a place you cannot predict. You learn the terrain's moods. Dry spells harden ruts into ribs that trip you. Wet spells turn quiet dips into dark pools that eat ankles and gear. A good day is simply one where ground and plan do not argue much. You keep your own mood steady to match. Anger costs attention. Nostalgia costs time. Both are attacks you cannot afford. There are days when everything lines up. The detector sings only when it should. The probe tells the truth at the first touch. The charge behaves like a student who studied. You do not celebrate loudly. You mark the lane, get people through, and file the feeling away for the cold days. Memory is a ration you can spend later. And there are days when the field seems personal. A tool breaks at the worst moment. A warning flag slips just as a truck enters the gap. A shell arrives not where you are, but where you planned to be. You breathe, reset anchors, and refuse to hurry as apology. Hurrying is how the day collects interest on your mistakes. Food remains a quiet thread. You eat when order allows, not when stomach insists. You learn to prefer simple things that do not make you thirsty. You trade a sweet for a sip with a friend because he needs the sugar and you need the water more. At home, this barter would be sentimental. Here it is logistics. Water control becomes a shared discipline. You do not police each other, you model. Small mouthfuls, a cap closed carefully, a canteen that lives in the same place on the belt, so hands find it blind. When a fresh can arrives, you do not lunge. You distribute and label. Thirst rewards drama. Safety prefers routine. Letters appear like small truce flags. You tuck them into dry pockets and read them when the light is kind. The words are not escape, they are alignment. They remind you that the work is not isolated heroics, but part of a bigger pattern of people relying on your lane. You fold the paper smaller and feel steadier. You do not chase recognition, you chase clarity, a sign that is blunt, a mark that will survive rain, a note that will make sense to a tired stranger at dawn. Pride shifts from, "I did this," to, "No one will have to guess here." It is a mature feeling that sneaks up on you. It makes the next decision cleaner. Injuries that do not bleed still count. A jammed finger reduces what you can tell from the probe. A twisted ankle changes the angle of the rod and distorts readings. You treat these with the same respect you give to anything loud. You tape, you rest, and you adjust tasks between partners so the lane does not degrade. You build redundancies quietly. 2 ways to light a fuse, 2 paths out of a field, 2 men who know the signals. You do not say the word backup much. You embed it. Then, when a gust eats smoke or a hinge refuses in rain, you shift without drama. Others call this luck. You call it practice paying off. The locals leave traces of courage that do not headline. A shutter left open as a signal. A milk pail set in the center of a lane you should avoid. A fence repaired everywhere except one place where you ought to pass. You respect the risk without asking for more. You take the hint, change direction, and leave the pail where it stands. You get better at ending days. At first you dragged work into dusk until the tools lied to you. Now you define your stop line with weather and light in mind. You hand the next team a lane that will still be readable after dark and after rain. That gift is worth more than squeezing 1 more meter at the edge of exhaustion. You become suspicious of clean narratives. The beach was not a single story. The hedgerows are not a single problem. Each field is a chapter, each crossing a paragraph, each caution a sentence that loops back to the start. The only plot you trust is the one where procedures defeat novelty. It is not exciting, but it is faithful. On rare evenings, a bridge stands finished and the road winks flat into the distance. Men roll over it without looking down. That is the highest compliment to your trade. They did not need to admire it. They only needed to cross. You allow yourself a breath, not a grin. Tomorrow asks for another span. You think about the word sapper. It sounds small, like a minor part. In practice, it means first in, often last out, and always the one who tests the world before others use it. The job is not to impress, it is to remove surprises. You learn to love the absence of drama the way others love applause. When the first month turns a corner, you notice the change in how you stand. Knees slightly bent, weight more centered, eyes doing their slow sweep without conscious command. A new recruit asks you how to look, and you do not talk about bravery. You talk about posture, sequence, and the muscle of patience. You keep one private tally, moments when delay saved someone. A stop that let a message catch up. A second look that found a tripwire hiding in pride. A count held steady even as shells walked a line toward you. These are not for a medal board. They are for the quiet ledger that proves the paradox was right. If someone asked what to carry home from this, you would not choose a souvenir. You would choose a habit. Make the world predictable where you can, before you move. At a kitchen tap, that means maintaining the thing you never see. On a road, that means markings that do not fade. In a workshop, that means tools that agree on size. You also carry a boundary. Do not rush for appearance. Do not stall for comfort. Decide based on the lane, the clock, and the weather, and say the reason out loud. Others will copy you, for better or worse. You owe them a method, not a mood. That is leadership at ground level. The campaign moves, maps change color, diaries collect mud and notes. The paradox remains. The timer that you start now is not for sprinting. It is for sequences of caution done quickly. It is for deliberate speed that looks strange until you count the lives behind it. Delay, rightly used, is movement. If you stand again on open sand in memory, you can feel the first pause returning. Eyes out, breath steady. The world is loud, but the craft is quiet. Stop, listen, confirm, move. Repeat until the field and the plan agree for a brief window. That is the discipline that turned a beach into a road and hedgerows into passages. And when someone says, "Why not just go faster?" you have an answer that needs no argument, because speed without proof is a bet with poor odds, and the house here never loses. Because the job was to get people through, not to arrive first. Because delay, taught well, was the only reliable bridge over the unseen. The pause becomes movement, only turned inward. You do not freeze. You work inside the moment. A count of breaths, a quiet sequence of hands, a recheck of something you verified 1 minute ago because mud changes and wire shifts. You enter the bocage like a stranger stepping into a crowded room, not headlong, but angled, so your eyes can catch the seam in the soil, the shaved stem, the patch that looks too neat. On the beach, you stopped under fire to hear the ground reply. In the hedgerow, you stopped to kill the urge to speed up the ending. Here, acceleration betrays you. Here, delay proves that each step is earned. Command on the ground is not slogans. It is simple phrases spoken low and on time. Tape lower. Step back. Again. They sound ordinary, and that is their strength. Ordinary survives better than theater. At night, light is currency, and you spend it like a miser. A torch cupped under a coat. A match struck with your back to a bank. A lens cap pinched beneath fabric. Batteries become part of your rationing, as real as biscuits and water. You learn to budget glow the way you budget courage, because both will run out if spent without thought. You stop trusting luck and start trusting sequences. If a step is uncertain, you make it conditional. Probe, confirm, place, check, then call the lane. Compressing steps steals certainty, and the enemy loves stolen certainty. The ground profits too. It offers you quick victories that are really invitations. You teach your hands to be boring. Boring is safe. Safe brings people forward. That is the job. Not brilliance, but repeatable proof that a patch of earth has been argued with and now agrees to let others cross. Roots do not repeat neatly. A field that behaved yesterday wakes mean today. A bank slumped in the night and half buried your marker. A cart creaked through and laid tracks across your tape that look official when they are not. You do not complain to the field. It cannot hear you. You revise and you say the new plan aloud, not for ceremony, but to give your partner a chance to catch what you have missed. Two minds speaking the same method is a stronger shield than silence and pride. Silence is an instrument you learn to play. Thin sounds matter, the tiny ring of wire as it wakes under weight, the hiss of damp powder in a fuse you should replace, a rustle that does not match the wind's direction. You catalog these noises and teach them to new hands. Teaching is insurance. You pass on the feel of a true contact in the wrist, the honest ground under the boot edge, the shallow give of a false bottom in a puddle. None of it is dramatic, all of it is exact, and exactness is what keeps a team intact. Flail tanks arrive like a miracle once and then settle into the toolbox. The drum turns, chains bite, dirt leaps, and the path goes from maybe to useful. But the machine is not a spell. It needs space to dance and room to turn. You clear driftwood and posts, mark soft patches, and keep men back until the ground stops jumping and the dust falls. Even miracles need margins. Give them those margins and they pay you back with lanes you can trust for more than a heartbeat. Sometimes you reach a feature you cannot rush, a culvert with its own logic, a gateway that hums under the detector and purrs against the probe. There you ask for a shaped charge, not a hammer. You protect stone because collapse is a new trap, and the lane must reduce traps, not trade one for another. You think in lines of force the way a carpenter thinks about grain. You are not breaking so much as persuading, and persuasion travels better through earth than violence. Messages travel strangely in hedgerows. A shout dies in leaves. A wave is swallowed by a bank. You build relays out of people, one at the turn, one at the bend, one at the breach. Hands speak, heads nod. A cap lifted once means send one squad, lifted twice means hold. You do not admire the elegance, you accept the necessity. The lane is a long body, the signals are its nerves. If the nerves fail, the body stumbles where it cannot afford to fall. Whenever you can, you pre-build answers. Tape reels sealed in tins against rain, stakes cut to length and bundled by habit, fuses wrapped in waxed cloth, a bridge panel quietly staged where the road narrows. The future thanks the past in small ways. The minutes you bank now pay back in a place you will not see yet. Discipline feels slow when you practice it. It feels like time travel when trouble arrives and you already place the fix. You learn the terrain's moods and stop arguing with them. Dry spells harden ruts into ribs that catch a toe and spill a man. Wet spells turn shallow dips into dark pools that eat ankles, tools, and time. A good day is simply one where ground and plan do not fight much. You keep your own mood steady to match. Anger taxes attention. Nostalgia taxes time. Both debts charge interest when paid in a field that only respects outcomes. There are days when everything lines up. The detector sings only when it should. The probe tells the truth at the first touch. The charge behaves like a student who listened. You do not celebrate loudly. You mark the lane, move the men, and file the feeling away for the cold days. Memory is a ration you can spend later when the sky turns against you and nothing answers correctly the first time. Good days are not gifts, they are investments. And there are days when the field seems personal. A handle splits when you need both hands. A warning flag slips just as a truck noses into the gap. A shell lands not where you are, but exactly where you plan to be. You breathe and reset anchors. You refuse to hurry as apology because hurrying is how the day collects interest on your earlier mistakes. The field is not watching you, but it punishes stage fright and pride with the same indifferent hand. Food stays a quiet thread running under every hour. You eat when orders allow, not when your stomach votes. You learn to prefer things that do not demand water as a tax. A sweet goes to a friend who needs the sugar now. You take a longer sip later when the work shifts from broad clearing to close proof. At home, that barter would feel sentimental. Here it is, logistics. The small trades are how a team moves the day without losing pace. Water becomes a shared discipline. You do not police each other, you model. Mouthfuls, not gulps. Caps tightened even when hands shake. Canteens clipped in the same place on every belt so fingers find them blind. When fresh water arrives, you do not lunge. You distribute. You label by section. You mark one for the next lane and one for the casualties you hope not to see. Thirst rewards drama. Safety prefers routine. Letters appear like temporary truces with the world. You tuck them into dry pockets and read them when the light is kind. The words do not remove you, they align you. They make your work feel less like a private war with mud and more like a service inside a chain where people you love step onto roads you protect without ever knowing you touch them. You fold the paper smaller and feel steadier, not softer. You are not chasing recognition, you are chasing clarity. A sign that is blunt and hard to misread. A mark that survives rain and boots. a note that a tired stranger can understand at dawn without waking a superior. Pride shifts from, "I did this," to, "No one will have to guess here." That is a mature feeling that does not ask for applause. It turns the next decision from art into craft, and craft is what survives weather and chance. Injuries that do not bleed still count. A jammed finger steals a fraction of what the probe can tell you. A twisted ankle changes the angle of your rod and lies about depth. You treat these with the respect you reserve for anything loud. You tape, you switch tasks, you rest the small parts before they turn into big risks. The body is equipment and deserves maintenance. Bravado will not read a wire correctly, only sensation will. Redundancy becomes a habit you stop naming. 2 ways to light a fuse, 2 lanes out of a field, 2 men who know the hand signals by heart. You do not say backup often, you embed it. Then, when a gust eats smoke or a hinge locks in rain, you shift without drama. Others call this luck. You call it the interest paid by preparation. The world looks calmer when you carry answers other people have not thought to bring. Locals leave traces of courage that never headline. A shutter left open to say, "A lane ahead is watched at night." A milk pail set in a road to mark a hole where a cart broke an axle yesterday. A fence repaired everywhere except one plank where you ought to pass. You respect the risk without asking for more. You take the hint, change direction, and leave the pail where it stands because someone risked enough already. You become better at ending days. At first you dragged work into dusk until your tools lied to you and your hands believed them. Now, you set a stop line with weather and light in mind. You hand the next team a lane that will still be legible after dark and after rain. That gift is more valuable than squeezing one more few meters at the edge of exhaustion. You stop calling that restraint caution. You start calling it leadership. You grow suspicious of clean narratives. The beach was not one story. The hedgerows are not one problem. Each field is a chapter. Each crossing is a paragraph. Each caution loops back to the start. The only plot you trust is the one where procedures defeat novelty, where slow truths dismantle fast surprises. It is not exciting, but excitement is a poor shield. Method is the shield you can lift every day, even on bad days. On rare evenings, a bridge stands finished and the road lies straight in front of you. Men roll over it without looking down. That is the highest compliment to your trade, their indifference. They did not need to admire the span, they only needed to cross. You allow yourself a single deep breath. Tomorrow will ask for another span, and you would rather build it with steady hands than with a head full of last night's pride. You think about the word sapper. It sounds small, almost like a footnote. In practice, it means first in, often last out, and always the person who tests the world before others use it. The job is not to impress. The job is to remove surprises. You learn to love the absence of drama the way others love applause. You come to prefer a quiet road over a loud victory. A quiet road means the craft worked, and no one had to pay extra for a mistake. When the first month turns the corner, you notice changes you did not plan. Knees slightly bent even when you stand still, weight centered, eyes making slow sweeps without being told. A new recruit asks how to look, and you do not talk about bravery. You talk about posture, sequence, and the skill of patience. You show how to hold a probe with fingers relaxed enough to feel truth and firm enough to resist panic. It is teachable. That is good news, because courage is a storm. Method is a habit. You keep a private tally of moments when delay saved someone, and you say it to no one. A stop that allowed a runner to reach you with a correction. A second look that found a thin tripwire hiding in your pride. A count held steady while shells walked closer along a line on a map that you could not see but could imagine. These are not for a medal board. They are for the ledger that proves the opening paradox was not poetry. It was instruction. If anyone asked what to carry home from this tour besides scars and fatigue, you would not choose an object. You would choose a habit Make the world predictable where you can before you move. At a kitchen tap that means maintenance of the thing you never see. On a road that means markings that do not fade and drains that do not clog. In a workshop that means tools that agree on size so hands move without doubt. Predictability is safety's quiet cousin. You miss it most where it never existed. You also carry a boundary. Do not rush for appearance. Do not stall for comfort. Decide based on the lane, the clock, and the weather, and say the reason out loud so others can check you. People will copy what they see, not what they hear preached. You owe them a method, not a mood. That is ground-level leadership, and it weighs less than speeches, yet holds more lives. Maps change color as the campaign moves. Diaries collect mud and pencil lines that only the writer can read. The paradox remains. The timer you start now is not for sprinting. It is for sequences of caution done quickly. It is for deliberate speed that looks strange until you count the lives behind it. Delay, rightly used, is movement. That sentence looks like a trick until you watch a lane hold while a company passes. Then it becomes a fact. Stand again, if only in memory, on open sand at the moment that began this lesson. Eyes out, breath steady. The world is loud, but the craft is quiet. Stop, listen, confirm, move. Repeat until the field and the plan agree for a brief window. That is the discipline that turned a beach into a road and hedgerows into passages. It is also the discipline that makes a city function in peace. Water that arrives, bridges that hold, signals that mean the same thing to every driver. You remember the locals and your allies in the same breath. The farmer who pointed with a look, not a hand, to keep you unseen. The interpreter who turned a wrong word into a right action before anyone noticed the difference. The driver who waited for your nod when a second of impatience would have crushed your tape and your day. Survival here is communal. Excellence is distributed. No one owns a lane alone, even if a single name lands on a report. You also remember the things you never want to see again without turning them into spectacle. Not the wounds, but the way fatigue stalks good judgment. Not the smoke, but the way wind hides your signal and leaves someone guessing. You catalog these so you can prevent, not so you can dramatize. You learn to say no in a tone that cuts through noise, because sometimes no is the bridge that others will walk another hour from now. There is a mercy in standards, and you learn to praise it. A Bailey panel fits a joint because people who never saw a beach agreed on dimensions years ago. A detonator threads cleanly because factories far apart share drawings. A spare pin from a lamp bracket saves a hinge because someone cared about interchange. Standards are courage in the machine. You will defend them with as much energy as you defend your team, because they defend your team when you are not there yet. You respect the enemy's craft without saying it beyond your team. A well-sighted mine at a gate is a lesson. A wire drawn through roots where even careful hands will struggle is a message. We took time when time hurt. You copy the patience, not the purpose. You assume they expect you to rush. You answer with a slower proof than anyone wants to watch and a faster movement than anyone expects when the proof is done. That balance is your private art. Sleep in this month is not peace, but it is functional. You dream in procedures. You wake with a hand already counting. You check your kit in the dark without lighting anything, and if you cannot find an item in 3 motions, you change where it lives on your body. That is not superstition. That is ergonomics learned under pressure. It looks fussy. It is survival. Rain remains a policy, not background. It writes orders in the margins of every plan. It chooses whether your adhesive holds, whether powder stays dry, whether a scribble stays a map. You treat weather reports as intelligence, not gossip. You plan bridges with water up, not water down. You lay tape where it will drain, not where it looks pretty. You teach new hands to look at the sky as if it were a commander, because often it is. When resupply reaches you, it feels like being seen by people you will never meet. Dry fuses, solid caps, fresh tape that grips even when chilled. You inventory out loud. You place each piece where hands can find it blind. You send back a note with what actually broke and what actually saved time. Because telling the truth to the rear is how the front gets the right things next week. Complaints waste time. Specifics buy improvements. You become careful with your language. You stop saying safe about any patch of ground. You say clear for now and mean it. You stop saying always and never. You like until, unless, and when. Those words hold space for weather, for chance, for the human factor that turns tidy checklists into messy days. A team that speaks with precision behaves with precision. Words are tools. Use them cleanly, and they stop cutting you. You carry small rituals that make big difference. Gloves off for the last confirm, because skin reads better than fabric. Gloves on for the move, because metal bites when you forget. Tape tags folded once the same way, every time, so you can tell by touch if they twisted. A whistle with a low note because high notes vanish in wind. These are not quirks. They are tuned responses in a place that punishes vague habits. When you brief new infantry on a lane, you do not talk long. You point to markers, explain the rule for stepping if a marker is missing, and tell them the boundary of your guarantee. You do not promise what you do not control. You do promise that the proof behind each meter is the same. Confidence then comes from consistency, not from speeches. Consistency is a reputation you renew every hour. You do not measure your day only in meters gained. You measure it in choices refused. You did not cut the verification. You did not move the stake where it would read better but hold worse. You did not let a good luck story replace a checklist. You did not lie to yourself about what your hands could still feel in the last light. These refusals are invisible to most people. They are the spine of safety in a field that bends everything toward hurry. And now, the finale you were promised. Return to the opening question. Why would a sapper stop on open sand under fire when everything in you says run? Because the only bridge across that unseen field is built from seconds spent turning chaos into a sequence you can solve. Delay is not a pause. Delay is design. Design is what turns wild ground into a passable lane. That was true at the waterline and stayed true in the hedgerows. You asked for 3 systematic reasons why this life bends even trained people to the edge, and why most would not last a day without learning the method. First, the layered environment of threats. Open space, hidden mines, crossfire, and improvised obstacles do not take turns. They act together. You cannot solve them one by one with speed. You solve them as a stack with proof. That is why stopping, brief, exact, disciplined, beats sprinting. Each second buys a fraction of certainty, and those fractions add up to a lane that others can trust. Second, the deficit of time and means. Safe windows are short, smoke thins, tides rise and fall, batteries fade, powder clumps, tools corrode, charges and pins run out faster than resupply can thread through narrow roads under pressure. You borrow techniques from one field and pay interest with risk in the next. You husband kit not to hoard, but to keep options alive. The clock here is a competitor, not a companion. Delay used well is how you steal from that clock without lying to yourself. Third, the entropy of the landscape. The bocage is not scenic. It is an active opponent. It reroutes sightlines, hides sound, drinks light, and drips water into everything from boots to morale. It bends discipline by making you choose between speed and caution 10 times an hour. It mocks tidy plans and rewards small, repeated, boring truths. The ground here breaks your rhythm unless you build a new one that matches its stubborn logic. What do we underrate today when we live far from such fields? The quiet value of predictable infrastructure, clean water that arrives without negotiation, evacuation that follows a timetable and a known route, tools that match across brands and units, drawings that agree so bolts thread without filing, signs that mean the same thing to every driver in every town. These are not conveniences, they are safety already paid for, so you do not need to pay in minutes under fire later. They remove dozens of hazards before you even step out the door. So could you last a day? If you kept your modern habits, likely not. You would drink when thirsty, rush when the clock felt loud, and trust that systems would cushion any error. Here, the cushion is thin. Here, the craft is patience under pressure and movement without hurry. The hero is a private with a probe who believes that caution is not fear, it is service. That private learns to stop, to listen, to confirm, and then to move with purpose that looks slow and is, in truth, the fastest possible way through. The beach was the first teacher, the hedgerows were the exam. The answer never changed. Delay was not indecision, but a planned bridge across an invisible hazard, across a clock that ran faster than resupply, across ground that refused to cooperate. That is why the first step was hesitation, and why that hesitation trained into sequence became passage. If there is one habit worth carrying home, it is this: make danger predictable before you move. In peace, it feels like overkill. In war, it feels like survival. In both, it is the difference between sprinting blindly and bringing people with you.